thanks to everyone that has joined this far in the summit. It's proven to be another great year. So thank you to the partnership for putting this on. Our presenter for this session is going to be MACLYN. They are a complete marketing service in all sectors. So they proved to be total marketing partner for anything that comes your way with business. So I'll turn it over to Tessa Dinsdale with our team, and she's going to introduce the individuals presenting.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. First, we have Bill Murphy with us today. Bill is the managing partner of MACLYN with nearly 2 decades of experience across a variety of marketing disciplines. Bill goes beyond the typical management role with his hands-on approach to our work. As a leader of small local business himself, Bill truly understands the challenges that members of our audience face in these complex times. We also have Courtney Healy with us. As MACLYN Strategy Director, Courtney oversees research projects, planning, and strategic execution for a variety of businesses and government organizations. She's experienced with the tools and tactics of today's most successful brands because she uses them every day. As a presenter, Courtney aims to demystify data and show her audience how the raw data they already have can be a valuable tool for business leaders and marketers. Last but not least, we have Troy Kellenher. Troy is a senior creative at MACLYN, where he takes a leadership role in developing and executing all things creative. During his tenure, Troy has teamed up with a wide scope of brands, including Pac-Man, Dunkin', Altoona Now, Brown Winnick, and Balance Autism, among others. As a presenter, Troy aims to show how good creative, smart strategy, and the right data are inseparable. Thank you for being here today, and I will hand it over to you.
Great, thank you, Tessa. Hi, everyone. As Tessa said, my name is Bill Murphy. We appreciate you joining us today. Courtney, Troy, and I have a really great presentation to show you today. So the agenda for today's presentation is data. And as you can see on this slide, there are several topics that we are going to touch upon. In summary, we are really talking about how data can be used to engage your customers. It's a very complicated subject. We're going to do our best to simplify it, and we're going to do our best to teach you methods for your small, medium, or large business. Tessa did a great job introducing our agency. I won't spend too much time on it. Not trying to sell you on our agency, but just want to establish some sort of background and credibility. We've been in business for 20 plus years. We have an office in the Chicago area where we've had an office for 20 plus years. And we're relatively newer to Des Moines. We've had an office there. We have a great staff there for just about 2 years. We are a full service agency. Appreciate the great introduction beforehand. We've worked very hard to build a full service agency where we have almost all facets of marketing in-house. And then in terms of clients that we work with, we have national clients, which is the above line. We're very fortunate to work on 2 iconic brands in Pac-Man and Dunkin', and then a very large global tech advisory company called Avanade, which has 40,000 employees worldwide. And below those logos are the organizations that we have had the pleasure of serving actively and passively in the Des Moines area. After the presentation concludes, there will be an opportunity for Q&A. Hopefully we have enough time, but if you have further questions that you'd like to take offline, we are available and we are happy to discuss. We enjoy talking the subject with everybody. So with that, thank you again for your time, and Courtney will take over from here.
All right. Good morning. Thanks, Bill. So as Bill mentioned, today we want to talk about how you can grow your business through customer engagement. And customer engagement is all the interactions that happen between your customer and your brand. And each of these interactions is either going to strengthen or diminish your relationship with your customer. Engagement comes through many channels. It could be social media, website, customer service, digital advertising, and the interactions that you qualify as engagement are going to be just as unique as your business. And the reason why customer engagement is so important is because when you engage with your customers, you're drawing them closer to your brand, your business, your organization, and it leads to loyalty, purchases, profits, and eventually your customers being an ambassador for your brand. Another concept that's closely related that we hear a lot about is customer experience. Customer experience describes everything that happens for a customer in relation to a brand. So it's seeing a billboard on the side of a highway to their experience walking into your lobby. Whereas customer engagement explores how the customer reacts and responds, how they reach out to you, what the relationship is to your content, marketing, and more. And so customer engagement and customer experience really work together. Customer experience provides opportunities for engagement. So here's an example. Right now, hotels are getting ready to welcome visitors for the holidays. So to provide a good customer experience, they may be decorating their lobby. But what would be even nicer is to engage these guests in the celebration. So there's this hotel in Portugal that every holiday season, they provide their guests with little miniature Christmas trees in their rooms. And they leave the trees bare and they give you a craft kit filled with everything that the guest would need to creatively decorate their tree. And this is a really magical way to engage the customer in a celebration. Now, where does data fit into all of this? So all of these concepts feed into one another. Having data on your customers can not only improve their experience, but it also helps us find ways to engage them. So remember this last example, it's such a cute way to engage this kind of hotel guest. But what if this is our hotel guest? I don't think this guy is jumping at the opportunity to use glue sticks and pipe cleaners to decorate a Christmas tree. In fact, it might actually turn him off from staying at the hotel in the future. 80% of consumers are more likely to do business with a brand that provides a personalized experience. And the only way to deliver that is through data. So what's your data strategy? This is a question that leaves a lot of business people feeling very perplexed. We know that data is critical to the right customer experience, and yet sadly, most businesses remain behind the curve when it comes to using their data. And you might wonder why. Probably because data is relentless. It's always being created in a million different ways. And if you don't have a well thought out strategy to collect, manage, and use your data, you'll find yourself drowning in a torrent of information. To begin building a data strategy, the first thing you have to think about is the kind of data you want to collect. So ask yourself these questions. How does the data align with your company goals? What are you trying to achieve? How will each piece of data be analyzed? Do you have the technology and the manpower to be looking at this data and in order to be able to turn it into information? And how will the data eventually contribute to the customer experience? But above all else, remember to keep it simple. Don't collect data just to collect data. Be intentional. So when we're thinking about how to build our data strategy and what kind of data we want to collect, it's important to note that data can generally fall into about 4 categories. The first one is identity data. So this is what allows us to be able to uniquely profile an individual. So it's the obvious, the name, phone number, contact information, date of birth, etc. And this can be found in a variety of places: forms, applications, online checkouts, newsletter signups, etc. The next is quantitative data. So these are those measurable data points that show how the consumer is interacting with your business throughout their customer journey. And it helps us understand the decision-making process and which channels are driving the most conversions. This is things like transactional data, purchase history, communication data. Are they opening your emails? Online activity, do they follow you on social media? Customer service data, and more. And this might seem like a lot of information, but the good news here is that it's largely collected through technology. So it's through pixels and Google Analytics, point of sale tools, etc. The next category is descriptive data. You can think of this as a heightened version of identity data. It helps us outline customer personas, and this brings us closer to being able to make predictions. So descriptive data includes things like marital status. Do you have children? Do you rent, or are you a homeowner? What's your lifestyle? What are your hobbies? Do you have pets? Do you like craft beer? What's your educational attainment? What's your job title, etc.? And this is collected through meetings and observations, but it's also collected through surveys. The final category is qualitative data. This helps us understand the reasoning behind your customers' choices. So is perceived value, likes, dislikes, preferences, etc. And it's collected through focus groups, social listening, online reviews, and more. Okay, so we have our 4 categories of data: identity, quantitative, descriptive, and qualitative. But you're probably wondering, this is great, but what data should my business actually be collecting? So let's talk about that. This is pretty obvious. You need to collect identity data, and you probably already have this. Customers are probably voluntarily handing this over to you when they're initiating a relationship with you. But there's other ways you can collect identity data too. So online forms, if you're putting out content on your website that's of value to your customers and prospects, you should consider putting a form in front of it and asking for a little bit of identity information in order for them to download it. Warranty cards are another great way. If you're a manufacturer and you're not selling to the end user, but that end user data is critical to your business, warranty cards are a great way to get that information. A lot of B2C brands use loyalty programs or rewards programs. You can offer discounts and promotions in exchange for identity data. When you host events, you probably have a registration form. And you can also do raffles in exchange for identity data. There's endless ways to collect this. For quantitative data, obviously all businesses should and are probably collecting sales data like purchase history, frequency, etc. But in addition to that, you should look at the channels in which your customers interact with your business and collect data across those channels. So look at your marketing plan. You want to collect information from your website, emails, social media, all the ways that you touch consumers. And at this point, if you're collecting identity data and quantitative data, you've built a good foundation of customer data. But let's take that a little bit further. So descriptive data, remember, is important because it helps us make predictions. So if I know that Bill is a homeowner, that might mean he's also in the market for a lawnmower, for example. But this kind of information can be harder to come by. So here, having your employees engaged in that data collection process is really key. But another way that you can collect descriptive data is just through surveying your customers. And lastly, quantitative data. So this helps us understand what customers think about your company and the solution that you provide. It delivers that firsthand account of what customers actually think. But I will caution this kind of data, the problem with this kind of data is that some customers can be louder than others. So if you have 10 5-star reviews and then your 11th review is 1 star and this person is loud and they're complaining, don't go down the road of thinking that this is the attitude everyone has. Look at all of your online reviews, support ticket comments, satisfaction surveys. These are all great ways to get the kind of attitude data that we need on customers. And having a consistent and proactive collection of this data from a statistically significant source is really key. So again, don't just listen to the loudest customer. Okay, so the next thing you have to think about is how to store and manage this data. So the way that you should do that should be very customer-centric. It should create a holistic view of customers. In the old model, it was very channel-centric. So if I own a shoe store, I might have a brick and mortar retail store where I have that set of employees and that set of customers and the data is there. If I also sell shoes online, I might have a different set of employees, different customers, and different data sets there. When customer profiles are fragmented across departments and channels, this is called data isolation. And data isolation leads to less collaboration among your employees and potential mistakes that your customers may not forgive. So the new model is very client-centric. The data is consolidated into one centralized location, and that provides a really powerful overview of your customer. The data is also widely accessible throughout departments, and this acknowledges that each interaction is relevant to the previous one. We call this single customer view. And this is what it can look like. So we have this gentleman, Jack Smith. We know his purchase history. We know his lifetime value. We know his engagement is high. We have his identity information, and all of the ways that he's interacting with our brand are telling a story. So on June 1st, he got an email from us, and he clicked that email. It eventually led him to the website where he found something he liked, he purchased it, and then 5 days later, probably after it shipped to him, we got an Instagram mention and then a Google review. This kind of tells the story of every way that this person has interacted with your brand. Okay, so now we know what kind of data we want to collect. We know where to find it and how to store it. How do we use data to personalize the customer experience? So I'd like to walk you through 4 examples of how brands are using data to personalize the customer experience and grow their business. The first example is the longest, but it does a great job of showing us how data can improve the customer journey. So our first story is about a resort and how they unified their data to create a personalized customer journey and a powerful customer experience. This resort is home to a luxury hotel, a few restaurants, a coffee shop, a salon and spa, a fitness center, and an event center. And they had a large amount of data, but it was fragmented across their business units. This data isolation was preventing them from being able to react in real time and provide a personalized customer experience. They needed to take their data and turn it into information so that they could take action. So meet Laura. Laura has stayed at the resort before. And last time she stayed at the resort, she requested a memory foam pillow. She also had an espresso at the coffee shop. Laura loves espressos, but she particularly loves this coffee shop. She's also very into fitness, so she did a Pilates class at the fitness center. She got a massage at the spa. She had a drink at the cocktail lounge, and it was her birthday, so she had a birthday dinner at the restaurant during her last stay. Before she even arrives at the resort, we already know so much about her based on her last stay. But where is this information and how do we use it to create value? This information is fragmented across all sorts of channels: the hotel booking engine, point of sale transactions, spa appointments, restaurant reservations, customer service data, and more. And so the resort needed to unify all of that into that unified customer profile, our single customer view, so that they could personalize the marketing experience. And this comes in the form of personalized booking offers, in-market triggers, email offers, hospitality engagement, and more. And we'll show you what that looks like. So if this information is unified, what could Laura's customer journey look like? It starts with planning. So Laura goes to the resort website and to book her stay, and she ends her visit before completing the reservation. So to entice her to come back to complete the reservation, the resort sends her an email with an offer for 15% off a massage because they know Laura really enjoyed her massage during her last stay. And it worked. Laura books her stay. When she arrives at the resort, she receives a notification reminding her to book that discounted massage, which is good because Laura totally forgot. When she checks in, the front desk staff can see her customer profile. And since last time she selected that memory foam pillow, they let her know they already have one in the room. And they also know it's her birthday because she comes here every year on her birthday. So they put a card and flowers in her room. They really over-delivered on that experience. In the morning, Laura gets a notification that she has loyalty points. She can redeem it anywhere at the resort. But the email suggests she uses it at the coffee shop because they know Laura loves this coffee shop and they know Laura really loves her espressos in the morning. Now during lunchtime, Laura leaves the resort. She goes and has lunch somewhere else. And while she's gone, she receives an offer for a free appetizer when she makes a reservation at one of their restaurants. And it works, Laura does. So that night she goes to one of the restaurants for dinner. When she arrives, the host pulls up her customer profile, that single customer view, and shares it with Laura's server. And her server is then able to make recommendations based on what she ordered in the past. And then the next day, Laura checks out. She receives an email later thanking her for her recent stay, and it also lets her know about upcoming events that are curated specifically based on her interest. Laura had a very personalized customer journey that was fueled by data. So our next example is about a commercial paving company and how they used quantitative data to reach prospects earlier in the funnel. So they're looking through their sales data, and it showed that a majority of the leads that this company was getting in January were coming from facility managers every January. And the other thing that all of these January leads had in common is that they had these really strict budgets that couldn't change. They were totally set. And so even though this paving company may have found something potentially bad with a parking lot that needed to be addressed right away, it was, budget's the budget, what are we gonna do? So they used this data to create an opportunity. When Q4 rolled around, the company released a white paper targeted to facility managers about how to budget for paving projects. The white paper reached their audience before they had finalized their budgets and positioned this company as consultants in the budgeting process. And so by reaching their audience earlier in the funnel, they were able to help them prioritize and create long-term plans. Now, in some cases, it still was the budget's the budget, but this way they were able to do a phased approach over multiple years. So it strengthened the relationship with this key audience and also created the opportunity for multi-year contracts as opposed to before just a one-off contract. Our third story is about a local bank that used audience segmentation to create hyper-personalized messaging. So this local bank wanted to promote their high interest deposit account to a targeted audience of potential clients. Because the product had a high minimum deposit, the first thing they wanted to do was use quantitative data to qualify prospects based on net worth. They didn't want to waste their marketing dollars going after the broke college kid. So next, they segmented that audience based on age because they know that what motivates each generation to save is going to be vastly different. And then they further segmented that by lifestyle data in order to personalize the marketing message. So if you were a Gen Xer with teenagers, the ad you saw was a message about saving for your kids' college, whereas a millennial that rented would see a marketing message or an ad about saving for a home. And so this personalized approach to marketing increased the effectiveness of the campaign, which ultimately led to sales. Our final story is about a home and garden center and how they drove repeat purchases through their loyalty program. So this home and garden center is known for their selection of high-end patio furniture. And because they have one of the largest showrooms in the region, people were coming from miles away to buy patio furniture from this place. This was a lucrative customer base. Their patio furniture is not cheap, but they were only making a one-time purchase. They weren't coming back to the store. So the Home and Garden Center needed a way to drive repeat business with these customers. To do this, they established a loyalty program, and they rewarded customers with points that converted to store credit. They created it so the points needed to be redeemed by the end of the calendar year. So customers that purchased that high-end patio set earned the maximum amount of points, which basically got them a $250 store credit. And that's an offer that's hard to ignore, even if you have to drive 10 or 15 miles to redeem it. So then they created an audience segment for the people who had earned this maximum amount and sent them personalized emails reminding them to use their points before they expired. And the email also promoted specific items to the customer based on what they had purchased in the past. So if they had purchased a patio set 5 years ago, the message might be time for replacement cushions. Whereas if they purchased it just this year, it might be why not add a fire feature to your patio set? And as a result, they were able to drive repeat business through this lucrative customer base. Now I'm going to turn it over to Troy to talk about data and culture.
Thanks, Courtney. That was awesome. So, hey, everybody. So like Courtney said, I'm just going to talk a little bit about what I call data first culture, which I think is something that we've worked really hard to build at MACLYN. And I think some of the lessons that we learned along the way, some of you can use them at your business as well. So first, as you can see here, I have a quick confession to make. My name is Troy, and I am a recovering data skeptic. So until a couple years ago, I didn't really understand the importance of data. I heard about it all the time. I knew we did a lot of things with data, and I would always hear Courtney talking about data. I would hear about it in industry publications, but to be honest, I didn't have a concrete understanding of what data did. And that's changed a lot for me over the years. I'm on the creative side of the business, but I've kind of discovered how important data is and kind of how important it is to use data across your entire business. So one of the kind of facts that dawned on me that changed my mind about data is understanding that data is really useful for all aspects of a business, but it's only really useful when everybody on your team is using it. So not just the Courtneys, not just the people who are data experts, but you kind of need to get everybody at your business or on your team respecting data to a certain degree, understanding it, and then learning how to use it, even if you're not maybe a math person or a numbers person. Taking data seriously has honestly helped me be a better creative. Part of being a creative is understanding your audience. That's, I would say, about half of it. And whereas before using data, I was always kind of relying on my own personal intuition and my own experience with people, using data kind of gave me the hard facts about my audience. And it kind of helped me understand audiences at a level that you really can't understand them with just your intuition. And it also brought kind of a degree of certainty to our work and made our work more effective. For those of us in marketing, and I think for pretty much anybody in business, we know that uncertainty is always a part of the formula. That's pretty obvious, I think, in 2020. But when you use data, if you're about to launch a new product or a marketing campaign, or even just a single ad, instead of just feeling good about what you're about to launch into the public, you know why it's going to perform well because the data backs it up. So just a couple tips about building a data-first culture. And again, when I say data-first culture, I'm talking about whether it's your business or your marketing department, creating a space where everybody understands the data to a certain degree that they can use it and respect it. So the first tip is to make data real. So present data in a way that everyone can understand and use. I think Courtney did a really great job of that earlier in the presentation, where she used concrete examples. She'll use words, not numbers, whenever possible. And when she's, for example, when she's talking to our creative department about a piece of data, she won't necessarily give us all the stats because that doesn't really tell us the story. She'll use examples and she'll say, okay, you know, demographic one, they like this, this, and this, they're interested in this. So that's our first demographic, that's Joe. And then Jane, our second demographic, is into these things. So then we can use, we can have those two people in mind as we create our campaign or our ad. The second point here is to make data mandatory, or at least as mandatory as you can within your organization. So use data to create, not just reinforce. This was kind of one of the first hurdles that we had to overcome when we were building a data-first culture into our agency. We would come up with, you know, these great ideas, these great creative ideas, and then we would look at the data and we would kind of, you know, cherry pick, okay, the data, this data point supports this, and this one supports it too, and this one kind of does too. We don't do that anymore. As much as we can, we look at the data first, and this is what I think you should do at your business too. Always look at the data first, and then build your creative ideas, your products, your marketing campaigns based on that. And again, require as much as you can that people use data to back up their ideas. Always be asking that question, you know, what does the data say? What does the data show? If two different people come to you with two different ideas, you should probably listen to the one that has the data to back it up. And then use data when presenting concepts to clients. So try to teach your customers and your clients, especially in a B2B format, why your ideas make sense using that data. And again, make the data real for them too. Use concrete examples, use stories and you know, real world examples. And then the last point here is to make data present. So this is something that we've been working really hard at, is breaking down those silos. So, your business obviously has different departments, but get those departments together, get those different people who are kind of on different sides of the data equation together, and talking about data. So one thing that's really helped us, and I think would help a lot of businesses, is we've started bringing people who are experts in different things, and in this case, experts in data, into the brainstorm room. So normally when we'd be having a brainstorm, maybe we'd have a couple of creatives in a room or in a Zoom room talking together. Now we always bring somebody who has a deeper understanding of data, like Courtney, into that room, so she can give her deeper perspective on the data, and we can build creative ideas based on that. Try to do the same thing with people maybe who are on the other side of the equation, maybe people who are creating the marketing campaigns or building the products. Try to bring them into the data gathering process so they can see where that data comes from and see that and understand it at, I guess, more of a real level. And then the last bullet here is just to adapt creative to new data. And when I say creative, that could be a marketing campaign or a product or a sale or anything at your business. Just try to be more flexible with it. When the data changes, you should probably change your marketing campaign or your product too. So just do your best to be flexible and listen to the data first. And if you do all these things, and we've worked really hard and we're still working hard to get there to that data first culture, then the data should shape everything from the big stuff. Like for us, that would be the big general direction of a campaign or a new brand that we're building, to the really small stuff, which for us is the individual advertisement or the individual piece of content that we're creating for social media. And I do have just two real quick everyday examples that I think demonstrate a data first culture and what it's like being in a data first culture really well. I didn't pick any of like our big examples where I'm talking about building a brand or building a campaign, because I just wanted to show you really concrete things that show how data can be used on a really small scale on a day-to-day basis. So our first example is one of our clients. They're a fast casual restaurant, and we were working with them to run a series of summertime product promotions. So we were creating a lot of content about different dishes that are popular in the summer. And when we looked at the data during the campaign, we noticed that in the summertime, customers were responding way more to any content that had to do with salads. So it sounds like a really small thing, but we pivoted our campaign just a little bit, and we had our creative team focus more on salads and some of the imagery that goes along with that, the freshness. And we also put more of our marketing dollars into salads too. And the campaign was more effective because we were willing to listen to the data along the way and adapt our approach based on it. Our next example is another one of our clients. Hint, they do sell donuts, among other things. We were working with them to create a campaign for social media that was targeting millennials and Gen Xers. And when we first started the campaign, it was really product focused. But if you'll go to the next slide, we discovered that maybe that wasn't the best direction for the campaign. We learned that our audience, the specific millennials and Gen Xers that we were targeting, responded way better to any content that showed people they could relate to. So other millennials and other Gen Xers. So what we did is, before we launched the campaign, we actually adapted our creative. We pulled back to make it a little bit less about just the products and make it really about the people who were enjoying them. And that, that's a good example of how when you're at the beginning of a campaign or the beginning of developing a new product or a new approach to your business, look at the data first before you make whatever you're going to make. And I think Courtney has a couple closing thoughts for us.
Yeah, so just in closing thoughts, things that we thought were important to keep in mind when you're thinking about building a data strategy and using data is, first, take the time to develop a meaningful data strategy. Make sure you're intentional with it. Don't collect data just to collect data. And you also want to encourage your data experts to be creative and your creatives to be data experts, as Troy touched on. And then finally, and this is our mantra, is do what works. Do what works for your business. You don't have to be a Fortune 500 company that has big data sets in order to use data. Do what makes sense for you, your company, and your customers. Thank you.
That was wonderful. Thank you so much. If you have questions or comments, please do use the chat. We do have one already, so I'll start there and give folks some time to add their messages here. What about the new California privacy law and GDPR over in Europe? What things do we need to be paying attention to as we collect that data or all of that data
I
out
can
there?
actually answer that question. It's a super complicated question. We actually have seen this quite a bit in the last couple of years. So specifically with the larger brands, we deal with this a lot with Dunkin' because they're such a large brand that they have such a high liability for it. So preface, we are not attorneys. So if you are really interested in with the subject more, you should obviously consult with someone that's an attorney. But essentially what the California Privacy Act is basically they set parameters on a few things. And it's important when California passes something, the whole nation has to react. So once they pass this, all of our plans had to change. So basically what it says is, if you're collecting data, you have to let people know that you're collecting data. And the basic, most straightforward way to do that is you create a privacy policy. And you give very specifics about what you're doing with the data, why you're collecting it, and how the data might be used. So that right there eases your liability. Number two, you have to have an opt-out. So if you collect someone's data on your website where it says sign up for your email so we can give you marketing content, you have to have them allowed to have the ability to go in and opt out afterwards. And the third most important is you have to give them the right to delete personal information. So if they can give you your name, their email address, their demographics, their age, their salary, they have to be able to go in and delete that information, or at least have the option to go in and delete that information. The good news is most of this stuff is supplied to you if you partner with a third party. So if you are using like MailChimp or Constant Contact, the very most simple form of collecting people's information for emails or marketing campaigns. A lot of these organizations can help you provide a privacy policy, and they can, they have APIs within their program that allow the opt-outs, that allow the businesses to delete their personal information.
Excellent, thank you. Our next question is about that data and storage and connecting. So is there software or apps, or what resource do you suggest that we use to store that data, or the single person view? And I don't know if maybe there's an elementary version and a more sophisticated version as we get going on it.
Yeah, so that's how you store your data is going to be unique to your business, but there's generally 3 categories of data storage platforms. So the first one that most of you are probably familiar with is the CRM system. This is the first data aggregation tool that came out in the 90s. And so that's the Salesforce, HubSpot, Keep, and a CRM system collects known details about a customer or prospect and their interaction. So it's built to engage with existing customers or prospects across multiple channels, which is why salespeople use Salesforce so often. Nice things about CRMs is that they're often nowadays built with add-ons that can autonomize marketing tasks. So if you have like lead generation activities and you want to create a sequence of touch points after someone comes into your CRM system, you can make all of that automatic. But it's not built to know about customers or prospects before they come into that system. So single customer view can be a little difficult to achieve. Oftentimes with CRM systems, we're seeing multiple individuals duplicated multiple times based on how they came into the system. But the ones that we use a lot, and this is also a really good starting point for how to store and use your data, is Salesforce and Keep. The next category of data aggregators is the data management platform. So this came out in the early 2000s, and that really caters to marketing and advertising campaigns. And it doesn't create a single customer view because it really just stitches together bits of like second and third party data, and it's kind of stored anonymously. So again, it's more about executing and planning for media. So then the third one, the customer data platform, kind of brings everything together. It's sort of the golden goose. It incorporates first, second, and third party data, and it centralizes it around the single customer view. And that is, for the example that I showed of the resort, that's how they were able to take action in real time based on what Laura was doing in her customer journey. These work well with big data sets. They also come with a big price tag. So Oracle, Exponia, Ascension M, these are all very popular customer data platforms. But again, for kind of the average business that's getting started in the data game, I'd probably recommend a CRM system.
And Courtney mentioned Salesforce and Keep, just for spelling purposes, that is KEAP. And we've had a success with both, and even those scale in various sizes, and those are quite affordable. When you get to the third category that Courtney mentioned, that's those come with six-figure price tags, and that's the right fit for some brands, but obviously for small business, that's a lot to swallow.
Mm-hmm.
That's great. Thank you. A lot, and there's just a lot out there, and I think it's important to know what's just interesting and what actually matters when you're trying to track some of this data, because you could probably go down several rabbit holes. Are there any other questions before we wrap up here? If not, I will take this time to thank the MACLYN team for sharing your expertise. Really insightful presentation today. Thank you. And thanks to all of you who opted into this session this afternoon. We sure appreciate that. Up next is our closing keynote session, believe it or not, with Google, talking about the effective team building, which is such an important topic now, as so many of us are distributed or maybe remote or hybrid type of versions.